My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee we sing. Under my father's pride, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain's height, let Good morning. My name is Henry Pleas, and I'm an adjunct professor of voice here at North Central College in the music department. I'm honored today to be joined by Dr. Susan Chou, who is our department chair and a very fine pianist. And we're going to present some of the music that was presented in a concert that contralto Marian Anderson gave in 1939. And it so happens that Dr. Martin Luther King was in attendance at that concert. We're going to explain why he was there and the influence that it had on him, her structure of the recital, and what she was intending, and how it influenced him to do the work that he later did in life. So, to begin the story, on Easter Sunday, April 9th, 1939, the concert took place on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Marian Anderson was famous in Europe and the US, but she had never faced such an enormous crowd. There were 75,000 people in the audience that day. In the chilly April dusk, Anderson stepped onto a stage built over the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and began to sing, "My Country, 'Tis of Thee." That opening song is remarkable given the circumstances. So she was invited to sing in Washington by Howard University as part of its concert series. Because of Anderson's international reputation, the university needed to find a place large enough to accommodate the crowd. And Constitution Hall in Washington was such a place. The Daughters of the American Revolution owned that hall. But they refused to allow her to use the hall because she was black, and because there was a white artist-only clause printed in every contract issued by the DAR. Eleanor Roosevelt was the First Lady of the United States at that time, and was also a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Outraged by the decision, Roosevelt resigned and wrote about it in her weekly column, My Day. She said, "They have taken an action which has been widely criticized in the press. To remain a member implies approval of that action, and therefore I am resigning." But the DAR did not relent, and they would not allow Marian Anderson to use the concert hall. The idea to sing an outdoor concert came from Walter Wright, who was the executive secretary of the NAACP. Since the Lincoln Memorial was a national monument, the logistics for the day were the responsibility of Secretary of the Interior Harold Ickes, who is a prominent name in US history. It was Ickes who led Anderson onto the stage on April 9th, 1939. She began with "My Country, 'Tis of Thee," also known as America, and a deeply patriotic song. And when she got to the third line of that well-known tune, she, like I, made a change. Instead of "Thee I sing," she sang, "To Thee we sing." Her change of lyric from I to we can be heard as an embrace, implying community and great group responsibility. Never a civil rights activist, Anderson believed prejudice would disappear if she performed and behaved with dignity. After America, she sang an aria from the opera La Favorita by Gaetano Donizetti, and then she sang Franz Schubert's Ave Maria. Instead of using the Latin text from the Catholic Mass that has become more commonly used when hearing the piece, Anderson used the original German text. The German text is a translation of a section of Sir Walter Scott's The Lady of the Lake. The title character in the piece, Ellen, asks the saintly Mary to guide and protect her through a very difficult situation and the bad acts of persons pitted against her. It seems fairly obvious that Marian Anderson in this concert very much related to herself to the ordeal in which Ellen was involved. The English translation of the German reads this way: Hail Mary, meek maiden, heed the supplications of a maiden from this bare, savage rock. My prayers will drift towards you. We sleep safely until morning, though men are still so cruel. O maiden, see the strife of a maiden. O mother, hear a pleading child. Hail Mary, pristine servant. The demons of the air and the earth are driven away by the glory of your eyes. They cannot live here with us. We wish to turn calmly toward fate, for your holy consolation hangs over us. The maiden will lean in towards you, the child that implores to their father. Hail Mary. I find it very strategic that she chose that song. I think it had the effect of lulling the crowd and bringing peace, which she had been very fearful about in the midst of the situation. She was very scared that violence would erupt in the concert, and that other people might be hurt, or possibly even herself, in the midst of the situation. In the audience for the performance was a 10-year-old boy whose name, like his father's, had been changed from Michael to Martin Luther 5 years earlier. The father, a rising religious leader in the US, had attended the Fifth Baptist World Congress in Berlin in 1934. 5 years earlier, and had been a part of a ratification of a constitutional statement that denounced racism and hatred. One portion of the statement reads as follows: "This Congress deplores and condemns as a violation of the law of God, the Heavenly Father, all racial animosity and every form of oppression or unfair discrimination toward the Jews, toward colored people, or toward subject races in any part of the world." As a result of his witness in this event and his engagement with the Reformation landscape that the original Martin Luther had worked to promote, Martin Luther, Michael King Sr., decided to change both his and his son's name to Martin Luther King Sr. and Jr. In the early years of his life, Martin Luther King Jr. was literally renamed as a prophet for the vision and dream he worked for all his life. In the early part of his journey was the concert that Marian Anderson gave in 1939. Leaders from all sides in the struggle attended the concert at the Lincoln Memorial, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Sr. Marian Anderson started the concert with classical selections, including the My Country 'Tis of Thee, and then she ended the short concert of 25 minutes with 3 spirituals: Gospel Train by H.T. Burley, Trampin' by Edward Boatner, and My Soul is Anchored in the Lord by the Chicago composer Florence Price. As an encore, she added the spiritual Nobody Knows the Trouble I See. We're going to do 3 of those spirituals: the Gospel Train, My Soul's Been Anchored in the Lord, and Nobody Knows the Trouble I See. Gospel train is a-comin', I hear it just at hand. I hear the car wheels rumbling and rolling through the land. So get on board, little children, get on board. get on board. Little children, there's room for many on board. I hear the car coming, she's coming round the curve. She's loosened all her steam to brakes and training every nerve. So get on board, little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many on board. Air is cheap and all can go, the rich and poor. No second class aboard this train. No difference in the price, so get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, get on board. Little children, there's room for many on board. My soul's been anchored in the Lord. In the Lord, in the Lord. My soul's been anchored in the Lord. If for stand in hell one day, my soul's been anchored in the Lord. I'd stay and take myself away. My soul's been anchored in the Lord, Lord. My soul's been anchored in the Lord, Lord. My soul's been anchored in the Lord. I'm gonna pray and never stop. My soul's been anchored in the Lord until I reach the mountain top. My soul's been anchored in the Lord, Lord. My soul's been anchored in the Lord, oh Lord. trouble I see, nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I see. Glory, hallelujah. Give you down before I turn all my friends uncoming. The trouble I see, nobody knows but Jesus. Nobody knows the trouble I see. So the concert made a huge impression on the young man. And in 1945, at 16 years old, he wrote an award-winning essay about the Constitution, the US Constitution, that references his experience at the event. He wrote, this is a longer section that I'm going to read, but I think it's worth hearing. America gave its full pledge of freedom 75 years ago. Slavery has been a strange paradox in a nation bounded on the principles that all men are created free and equal. Finally, after tumult and war, the nation in 1865 took a new stand, freedom for all people. The new order was backed by amendments to the national constitution, making it fundamental law that thenceforth there should be no discrimination anywhere in the land of the free on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Black America still wears chains. This is still Martin speaking. The finest Negro is at the mercy of the meanest white man. Even winners of our highest honors face the class color bar. Look at a few of the paradoxes that mark daily life in America. Marian Anderson was barred from singing in the Constitution Hall, ironically enough, by the professional daughters of the very men who founded this nation for liberty and equality. But this tale had a different ending. The nation rose in protest and gave a stunning rebuke to the daughters of the American Revolution and a tremendous ovation to the artist Marian Anderson, who sang in Washington on Easter Sunday, and fittingly before the Lincoln Memorial. Ranking cabinet members and a justice of the Supreme Court were seated about her. 75,000 people stood patiently for hours to hear a great artist at a historic moment. She sang as never before with tears in her eyes when the words of America and nobody knows the trouble I see rang out over that great gap. There was a hush on the sea of afflicted faces, black and white, and a new baptism of liberty, equality, and fraternity. That was a touching tribute, but Miss Anderson may not as yet spend the night in any good hotel in America. Recently, she was again singly honored by being given the Bach Award as the most distinguished resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Yet she cannot be served in many of the public restaurants of her home city, even after it has declared her to be its best citizen. So he wrote that in 1945, and he was 16 years old, and already we hear the voice of a man who changed this nation and the world. 24 years after Marian Anderson's concert, Martin Luther King was part of the organization of the March on Washington. And that event happened on August 28, 1983, that happened on August 28, 1983. Marian Anderson was at the end of her career, retiring from the concert performance stage the following year. Nonetheless, Martin Luther King Jr. personally called her and asked her to sing the national anthem to start the March on Washington. Washington, D.C. had not seen such an event since her 1939 concert. I posted that picture of the two of them looking out, and it's the same picture, the same image of the Washington Monument in the background and the waiting pool and the people on the sides. It's exactly the same. They were one of the two people who had had that experience of looking out over that scene and presenting in that way. Washington, D.C. had not seen such an event since her 1939 concert. At the March on Washington, there were 200,000 people, and traffic was at an absolute standstill in the city. Marian Anderson was not able to reach the podium on time for the national anthem, but rearrangements were made with the other musicians on that stage, including the great Mahalia Jackson and Joan Baez, and Anderson sang the spiritual that we're about to do. She had recorded it and released it after the Lincoln Memorial Concert, and it had become an international hit in the 1940s and 50s. He's got the whole world in his hand, he's got the big round world in his hand, he's got the wide world in his hand, he's got the whole world in his hand. He's got the wind and the rain in his hand, he's got the sun and the moon in his hand, he's got the wind and the rain in his hand, he's got the whole world in his hand. He's got that gambling man in his hand, he's got that lying man in his hand, he's got that friendship man in his hand, he's got the whole world in his hand. He's got that little bitsy baby in his hand, he's got that tiny little baby in his hand, he's got that little bitsy baby in his hand, he's got the whole world. world has gone. She's got everybody in her hand. She's got everybody in his hand. They've got everybody in his hand. They've got the whole world in their hand. I want to tell you a little more. If I can find my place. Yesterday, I was listening to NPR and the program Code Switch. I don't know whether you listened to that. The interviewed guest was Hajar Yazdia, author of a new book. It's called The Struggle for the People's King: How Politics Transformed the Memory of the Civil Rights Movement. This book has recently been published and delves into our country's sanitization of Dr. King and his work by whitewashing the humanity of this great leader, using only the words and thoughts from him that fall into a narrow definition of what it is to be free and equal in this country. We lose sight of the radical ideas that both he and Marian Anderson promoted in overturning the status quo. Despite substantial gains, the struggle continues and in many ways has intensified. Marian Anderson, Martin Luther King, and a host of other civil rights leaders call us to continue to seek the justice that is the divine right of every human being. We are responsible for embracing our racial and cultural differences, not normalizing what we have currently considered as finished work. If you take nothing away from the presentation today, except this, we will call it a success. As did Marian Anderson for Martin Luther King Jr., each of us is modeling something for another individual, which will make a difference. The chain is unbroken, and each of us will make a difference for the good or something else. Remember the words that Marian Anderson's concert started with and inspired Dr. King to amplify. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And that will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom